Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am your co host, Jocelyn Turner. I've been out a couple of weeks, Dr. Kane. It's been weird. It just seems very strange showing up again on a Tuesday night. And yes, I was on vacation. So I think all of us need that every now and then. But how are you doing this evening, Dr. Kane?
I'm doing absolutely fine. I didn't tell anybody you were slacking, so you just told yourself. So I wasn't going to tell.
Well,
But no,
again,
I've been doing absolutely fine. I love the. I mean, I like rain. I like it late. I like it quick. So my yard looks better.
mine looks a mess. I need my lawn guy to show up soon because the grass is overgrown. But anyway, enough about me. Tonight is an exciting night when our behind the scenes guy comes from behind the scenes. Our let's see, what does he call himself, Dr. Kane? Our technology wizard,
Uh,
Tyrone Jackson. How are you doing this evening, Tyrone?
I'm doing well. I see the vacation didn't stop you from hating.
Well, we are super, super excited and delighted. We have two very special guests joining us this evening. State Representative Angie Nixon, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. It's nice to be with you all today.
And wonderful to be with you. And congratulations on your new, I'm going to call it book cafe, bookstore
Thank
and
you. Thank
cafe.
you.
Got to
Congratulations
tell us
on that.
something about it.
Yeah, we'll let
Yeah.
her get to that shortly. Let me go ahead and bring in our second guest. I love it how she is letting you know she is LaShonda L.J. Holloway, Holloway for Congress. How are you doing, LJ?
I'm well, thank you, Jocelyn.
And thank you both for really, I have to say this right off the bat. Thank you both for your commitment to really serving the community and being a voice for people who sometimes don't always necessarily know how to speak for themselves. One thing I can say for certain, the two of you don't hold back. You say what's on your mind, and I absolutely love it. But the good news is you're telling the truth. You're not telling people anything that's not truthful. So thank you both for being with us tonight. Thank you again for your service. And as Dr. Kane alluded to a moment ago, before we get into the discussion, I would like State Representative Nixon to tell us a little bit about your new bookstore and why you opened it.
Yeah, for sure. So again, thank you for having me. I recently opened Cafe Resistance Bookstore and Coffee Shop in the heart of Northwest Jacksonville on Sutel Drive. And so one of the main reasons that we decided to open was in response to the book challenges and bans that are taking place across the state of Florida. Also, in response to the teaching of inaccurate Black history within our public school system, and also in response to just the low literacy rates within the Black community. And so we not only serve as a bookstore and coffee shop, but we also serve as a community hub where organizations can come to educate the community. They can host workshops to build power and just an overall just space for people to come build. I'm actually sitting outside right now in my van because we have free music lessons that are taking place as well for the neighborhood students. And before that, we had free tutoring as well. And so it's just an overall one-stop shop for the community and a place to gather, a place where we can just bring people together and they can see that they deserve nice things, because oftentimes folks feel like if you live on the north side, you can just get the bare minimum, and we want to push back against that narrative.
Let me just correct you on one thing in terms of inaccurate Black history. It's inaccurate history, period.
Yes.
They are presenting an accurate history altogether. But I digress.
And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall a bookstore being in the general vicinity of that area. Is that right? Ever?
No, I think there was one that was located like Lem Turner and Edgewood area.
It was called Nefertiti's.
There's not one right now. Right. And we actually got someone from like over in the Shands area at River City that actually came in the other day for a smoothie and a book. And I asked her, it was actually a white woman. And so I was like, hey, how'd you hear about us? And she's like, I Googled it and I'm happy to be here. And so she's going to come and frequent the shop. So we are like the only bookstore located within probably like a 5-mile radius, a 5 to 8 mile radius.
Well, you're in my neck of the woods, so I definitely have to go there because I'm right off the Turner. It was across from that old bookstore, Nefertiti's.
Yeah.
So,
and it has smoothies.
What'd you say?
And they have good smoothies.
All right. Now it sounds like coffee too. I'm a coffee girl. I like smoothies and coffees. But anyway, again, enough about me. And again, congratulations. And I love it when people bring much needed resources. For example, Dr. Kane's practice is a few miles down from the bookstore. So I'm thankful to all who are committed to bringing much needed resources in underserved communities. And I don't like calling it underserved communities, but unfortunately we refer to it as that because other parts of town are bustling with businesses and some parts of town are not. And so again, thank you both for your perseverance in wanting to really serve the people and be a voice for people. Tonight we decided to invite the two of you because there's a lot of buzz around a whole lot of things happening when it comes to politics. This is Dr. Kane's favorite topic because he's been talking to, and Tyrone as well, in terms of talking to some young folks about it. I tend to shy away from it sometimes because I don't want to get into debates. I was one of those old women who was downtown when Roe v. Wade was overturned, and I was challenged by a pro-life person because I was there because I think people should have the right to do what they want to do. And that's all I was there saying. But of course, people being what they do, someone came in my face and was challenging me. And so I tend to I don't like controversy like that. So, but it didn't get ugly or anything. But again, I'm glad that we're having this conversation because in a few months, people are going to, actually next month, people are going to start having to make decisions or choices of who they'd like to be our next elected official or to continue as an elected official. In your case, Representative Nixon. And we need to make sure that people understand what the implications of the political climate are, and not really understanding what's happening sometimes can sway people in a direction that's not necessarily beneficial to them and their families. And so we are wanting to start a series of conversations to really educate people. Who would like to take a stab at it? I'm actually going to take a stab at it and tell you what I read about Project 2025. Project 2025, proposed by the Heritage Foundation, contains several policy recommendations. And by the way, I looked at it from my own angle, so forgive me if I'm skewing it in one direction, but it says that it could negatively impact low and moderate income families. One major aspect of the project is the proposed implementation of lifetime caps on Medicaid benefits. I'm going to take a plug there for a moment, Dr. Kane, because as a physician, can you imagine if someone has a cap on Medicaid, but we can't put caps on our health conditions, right? So today, some folks are in pretty good health, but in a couple of weeks, something catastrophic could happen, and they are now in a different state of health. But if their Medicaid benefits are placed at a cap and they've already reached that cap, then what happens to them and their care? So that's how I think it. But we'll get back to that in a moment. But this would mean that once individuals exceed a certain amount of Medicaid coverage over their lifetime, they would lose their eligibility regardless of their financial situation. Such caps could result in significant coverage losses for millions of low-income individuals who rely on Medicaid for affordable health care. Additionally, Project 2025 advocates for reducing or cutting funding for Social Security net programs, which could further strain low-income families. The plan also includes significant changes to federal agencies, which may disrupt services that benefit these families. In summary, and this is not really in summary, but this is just a piece of Project 2025 that I focused on. The implementation of Project 2025 could lead to reduced access to essential health care and increased economic instability for low and moderate income families. Anybody like to comment on that?
I'll say something first, and I'll let the ladies take over from this point. Because as a physician, I just know, I mean, it affects me, it affects my patients, them first, and then me second, how it affects. The thing I will say is when you cap something like that, we don't know what the cap will be, how much it will be. The other part winds up being, when it comes down to kidney, I'm just using an example. When it comes down to people being on dialysis, okay, Medicaid kicks in and help these dialysis patients to be able to stay eligible for dialysis and to achieve the dialysis they need 2 to 3 times a week, whatever it may be. Our problem comes in at is that if you put a cap on it, and this is a patient with dialysis that may have the reason for being on it because of their kidney failure, doesn't necessarily have to be anything that they did. It could be just the luck of the draw. They got anything from lupus to, type 1 diabetes, which is a lot more luck of the draw and not about the patient being excessive in some of the things they do. Those things could particularly affect those patients and not allow them to receive the dialysis and the services that they need as it relates to Medicaid. If that happens, they're dead. And there's no ifs and buts about it. If they can't have the benefit of dialysis, which is dependent on Medicaid, okay, as far as it relates to helping them pay those bills, those people are dead. I don't care what you say. And I think, other physicians are listening to this. They can correct me if they think I'm mistaken. But there is no hope for them to survive and be influential in terms of their kids, their spouses, anything that they need to have done or they want to achieve in life. They just can't do it because the state has limited their access to Medicaid, something, which they definitely and will need just to survive.
And LJ, I remember all about healthcare. That's your thing, right? As long as I've known you, and you've been very public about your own, I will say, catastrophic health issue last year and the testimony regarding it. Can you imagine if you were on an insurance plan that put a cap on your care at that moment in time in your life?
No, I cannot. And so that's one of the reasons why I started All About Healthcare Advocates, because my injections at the time were $2,500 a month. And I understood that the average American, because the injections were considered experimental. Mind you, the care had been given in Europe for more than 25 years. However, the USDA considered the care experimental. Now, I could afford to pay for a $2,500 a month injection, but the average American cannot. And think about the cost of rent. The average person can't even afford to live alone anymore, let alone people, with families are seeking roommates. And you're starting to see, like it was in the 50s, 3 generations under one household. And so that's why I started All About Healthcare Advocates. But to Dr. Kane's point, Florida is one of 6 states that did not expand Medicare. That's number one. Florida did not expand Medicare. But number 2,
Medicaid.
Medicaid. But what we really are talking about is life expectancy. So that's what's happening. Look, if you don't have adequate care, you die. It's plain and simple. It's life and death. If you don't have adequate care, you die. And just for me in particular, I live off of Dunn Avenue, and from 295 to 95, there are 7 dialysis centers. From 295 to 95, there are 7 centers, and those parking lots are packed. And so I remember back in 2012, I was a speaker at the National Medical Association. They had a consortium on healthcare, and they were talking about the number of African Americans who were being diagnosed with kidney disease in a very alarming rate. Well, oftentimes people live within their box. You know, if it's not in my backyard, I don't know anything about it. But the harsh reality is every day we have more and more people who are dying from kidney disease, and the 7 centers within a 2.5-mile radius is evidence of that. If you cap Medicare, guess what? Those people, instead of living on dialysis, whether it's peritoneal or hemo, they will be dying, and we were going to see that. We already know that children who were born from 2000 and above, 2000 above, will live less than their parents. This will be the first generation who will not outlive their parents. Between the onset of diabetes and kidney disease, we have to not only impress upon this generation and people who we know within our sphere of influence the importance of voting, but we have to make sure that we do not allow the former president to become the president, and we have to make sure that we secure the Senate and flip the House.
What other parts? I focused on the health implications or healthcare implications of Project 2025. Can either of you speak to the one part of it? Because from what I understand, it's a 900+ page document. Is there any other particular part of Project 2025 that, as my niece says, grinds your gears?
Yeah, you can say, look, I stopped reading at probably page 635, and I'm going to let Angie speak so that I'll just take over, because my spirit was aggrieved the first time I read it, and that was last year. And people weren't talking about it. So when I would mention it, people would look at me like I had 2 heads. So I will just tell you that the biggest thing to me was, look, ending our civil rights protections. That's the biggest thing for me, ending the civil rights protections. But all of it is egregious. Look, we are in for a rude awakening if we don't get out and vote. The people on this call, of course, we all might be financially secure, but it's a trickle-down theory. If your grandmother loses her Social Security or her Medicare, you're not going to see her without, so you're going to have to take care of your grandmother, right? And like I said, it's life and death when we talk about the average life expectancy. But bigger than that, when I say my biggest issue is with the ending of our civil rights protections, something as simple as the right to vote. This might be the last time. Look, we just saw a Supreme Court that gave a president partial immunity. Look, you might not necessarily, remember, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, Section 2 has not been codified. So look, you might see that erode. We have been getting amendments to continue to vote, but Black people in particular, look, we could see those rights erode.
Ms. Nixon.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the most upsetting part to me is them raising the retirement age, and raising the age for folks to be able to get Social Security. I just think about my mom and how she's worked so hard, and now thinking about other parents and and folks who have been working so hard and won't be able to potentially get their Social Security, and like that's a slap in the face. That's a huge slap in the face, especially to the working class who has continually poured into the Social Security system. And now we are threatening to raise that to a point where they will never ever get access to it. And it's just not right. And it's something that we need to push back against.
It would be dead before we get an opportunity to enjoy Social Security, even though
Right.
you put it in all your life. And just to remind people, Social Security is one of those programs where we're actually paying for the generation before us. When it was brought into play, Social Security was one of those programs in which the younger folks were paying for the older folks because the older folks paid for the previously older folks to enjoy their Social Security. But they all put their monies in. Maybe the first group that did not contribute to Social Security, they may have been the ones that did not put into Social Security, but they put it into this country. You know, my
Mhm.
great grandparents and grandparents put a lot into this country, put a lot into paying taxes and doing all the things that they felt was the community-wide things to do. And now to be at the end of life and tell you don't matter, whether or not it's because we're going to cut Medicare, cut Social Security, in the as we just discussed a few minutes ago, go ahead and end the access to dialysis by way of ending Medicaid. It's just ridiculous. We're putting all
Yep.
this money into our taxes, whether it's state, local, or federal, and then we don't get the opportunity at least to halfway enjoy life without going out there and picking cotton every day till you're 95.
One thing that I see on this list is promote and expedite capital punishment. Now, we know there are a lot of people of color who have been wrongly accused or and may be in prison. And so if you, and I might be looking at it wrong, LJ, the lawyer here, if you expedite capital punishment and you've been wrongly accused of a crime, what does that mean for you potentially, right?
End of life, Jocelyn.
Right. Right. Yeah, and the sad part about it, and another thing that stuck out, defund the FBI and Homeland Security. And that to me means it allows people to just go willy-nilly and do what they want. And we all,
And
when we travel, you have to put this into perspective with people. When we travel, we want to be able to freely travel to wherever we want to go, where we happen to have the freedom and the financial resources and means to go. If we don't have these federal agencies in place, that puts us at risk of so many things. The way and I'm looking at the air and all it's just too much. Just the thought of what could potentially happen if federal agencies are like the FDA, EPA, and that's the Food and Drug Administration, the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Oceanic and Aeronautical Association, and more, right? Those things that we take for granted. It's like some things that we benefit from, but we don't know that we benefit from, right? The medications, if you start deregulating things and allowing states, governors, and by the way, everybody who runs don't let me go there. Everybody who runs for politics or political offices don't possess the knowledge to make decisions about things that affect us. I see you shaking your head, LJ.
look, so you'll be surprised at the number of people who don't know the difference between local, federal, or state. But to your point, we're talking about Project 2025, but let us be very clear that it's already in play. It's not like they're waiting until 2025. It's already
Yeah,
in play. And we will
yeah.
see from this last legislative session that Florida definitely has already put many of these things into play. If you see the laws that were introduced or went into effect on July 1, you see that it's already in play. And so when you talk about driving, we call that in the law interstate commerce. And so we take for granted that we can go up 95 and pass through 6 states to get to DC and not, and do that all the time, or we can go to Georgia 45 minutes away. But when you talk about Project 2025 and taking away some of these agencies and relegating it to the states, yes, you will limit interstate commerce. And I had some friends to come down this weekend from North Carolina, and they were in their 70s. They were stopped on the highway. Mind you, they both were in their 70s, stopped on the highway, and she swore she was not speeding, but she said they had the dogs to come and search their car, and the dog sniffed her purse. And they were just 2 Black people driving on the interstate. Now, we heard about these kind of stories in the 50s. You don't hear about it all the time now, but we're starting to see many of these things go into effect. And yes, we currently have Department of Justice, but if you allow Project 2025 or allow 45 to become 47, you will see these things and you will not have any recourse. The Chevron doctrine is a Supreme Court case that was just overturned, and that's where departmental offices, could regulate or could have a voice to interpret where there was some gray area, because many of these laws are written ambiguously so that they can interpret them or have the judges that they appoint to interpret them in their favor. So now that the Chevron doctrine has been overturned, that's exactly what's going to happen. They are going to be able to have their way, and you have no legal recourse. And we see now too many people can't afford to pay rent. So where will they be able to afford to have any legal redress?
Yeah, and I also think about when Roe v. Wade happened. I tell ladies, that's just the beginning. Trust me, there are some other rights that as women we enjoy today that men are working behind the scenes, dismantling. I saw something on social media recently about years ago when a group of ladies started a bank because they were not able to get loans, right? And think about, again, that's something that we take for granted. If we need something, a home or a car, we go to the bank and we ask for a loan. But if as a woman, that right is stripped away, then what will I do as a single person? Oh, that's right. This thing over here doesn't care about single women. You know what I mean? And I say it, as a joke, but it's serious, right? In terms of what it is that's really happening. So every week we're going to take a pause for a moment, and then we'll get back to the discussion. Don't you go anywhere though. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the current political climate and the things that have been happening, like Project 2025, the recent Supreme Court ruling regarding former President Trump, as well as voting, because I would like to I want to make sure that we talk about why it's so important for individuals to get out and vote. Each week we feature a history maker moment or some conversation or some video clip about tonight's discussion. So Tyrone, our behind the scenes guy, he does his homework and he surprises us each week. So if our guests would just pause for a moment and allow us to share this video clip. Take it away, Tyrone.
Hey everyone, welcome to Pause for the Truth, July 9th, 2024. This is our History Maker Minute. You need to hear this if you're a defender of democracy. We're talking about Project 2025 and its potential to wreck the American values we hold dear. Now, I want you to think back to the civil rights movement of the 1960s. It was a time of struggle, pain, but also monumental progress. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. fought tirelessly for equality, justice, and the right to be heard. They envisioned an America where everyone, regardless of race, creed, or background, could pursue their dreams freely. But now, here comes Project 2025. This initiative claims to be about modernizing and securing our country. But behind the scenes, it's a completely different story. Project 2025 proposes policies that undermine voting rights, restrict access to fair education, and widen the gap between the rich and the poor. These policies are eerily reminiscent of the Jim Crow era, when laws were designed to keep African Americans and other minorities from exercising their rights. This should be alarming to anyone who values democracy and equality. Let's break it down. One of the core elements of Project 2025 is voter ID laws. These laws may sound reasonable at first glance, but in practice, they disproportionately affect minority communities and the economically disadvantaged. It's reminiscent of literacy tests and poll taxes used to disenfranchise African American voters decades ago. And it doesn't stop there. The project also includes cuts to public education funding. This will hit low-income communities the hardest, perpetuating a cycle of poverty and limited opportunities. Remember, education was a cornerstone of the civil rights movement. It was seen as the key to achieving equality and breaking free from systemic oppression. Moreover, Project 2025 aims to reduce social safety nets. Programs like Social Security and Medicaid are at risk. These are lifelines for millions of Americans, especially the elderly, disabled, and those living in poverty. Stripping these away goes against the very principles of compassion and community that our country was founded on. So why should you care? Because this isn't just about politics. It's about the soul of our nation. If we allow Project 2025 to go unchecked, we're turning our backs on decades of progress and the sacrifices made by countless individuals who fought for a fairer, more just America. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We must stand vigilant, speak out, and protect the values that define us as Americans. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, the future of America depends on us. Stay informed, stay engaged, and let's fight for a better tomorrow. Catch you next time.
Wow, that was great. LG, I want to Representative Nixon, you're back. As a state representative, can you share an example of a time, and I want to get into divisive politics, because unfortunately we seem to be so far in, if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat, I remember in the past, folks used to be able to come together and agree in order for the good of the country, the good of the state, good of the city, good of the community. But things are so divisive now. During your term as state representative, can you share an example of a time when you worked across the aisle to achieve a common goal?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's oftentimes few and far between. But I was able to help work across the aisle in regards to getting some amendments on a bad bill to make it less bad. There was a bill in regards to this was like it was in regards to high school kids and who could play sports with whoever or whatever. And so I was able to tack on behind the scenes, to allow children that were at a public school but didn't have sports to be able to go to a private school to participate in those sports, because vice versa could happen. So they were able to do that. Oftentimes it's small things and wins like that that you can often get. I know recently as well, working behind the scenes with Senator Davis, able to get the Dozier boys some relief. They'll be able to tap into some funding for those students that were abused at the Dozier school, and so that's happened. But oftentimes it's very few and far between. They want us to keep our mouth closed, and I was told, frankly, my first year, do I want to be an advocate for my community or do I want to bring home money? And to me, that would be both. So basically, what he said was, he said, "Do you think you're smarter than everyone here? You think this is a game? This is a game. You thought you were going to come here and change it? Literally, this was Republican leadership." And I'm like, what? Like, can I be both an advocate and bring money home? And so he basically was saying, no, he wants me to be quiet if I want to bring any type of money home. So, and the money that is oftentimes potentially brought home by folks that look like myself, who are, in the minority as far as the party, the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
It's not really a lot of money. It's scraps of scraps of scraps of scraps.
Yeah.
It's nothing transformative. And so, I think it's better to raise awareness about what's going on. And I think they're trying to stop me. And so that's kind of what I'm dealing with. One of the reasons they decided to put me in a basement with rats for a few weeks previously.
What are, let me see, what are the Florida state representatives doing to prepare or address the potential changes in voting laws as it leads up to the 2024 elections? What is there a plan put forth by our state representative, Democrats, Republicans, whichever one you're aware of? What is the plan to improve voter turnout, to decrease the effect of what they're trying to put in place to prevent voter turnout? We have anything going on within the Democratic Party or wherever?
So I can tell you what's going on. So I am a Democrat. However, I also lead a statewide organization called Florida for All, and the walls are currently up right now. And I am not privy to strategic plans that are put forth by the Democratic Party because that is illegal based on the work that I do. However, I can tell you what many organizations that do movement work and things like that, what we are doing, we are out, we are engaged, we are continually working in communities of color and low income communities to have conversations about them, about what's going on, and also to do some scenario planning, because let's be truthful, whether or not if Joe Biden wins and if Joe Biden loses, we need to be prepared, and we need to make sure that we are educating people about some of the harsh realities that can happen. They stormed the Capitol on January 6th. They're going to be even more pissed if he does lose again. And so we got to prepare people. And so we're in the process of working through that. And yeah, that's some of the things that we're doing right now.
Remind me
And
of
also,
moving.
we have been, I'm sorry to cut you off, we have been proactive with putting forward legislation previously in regards to voting rights. It was actually the Harry T. and Harriet V. I think it was Moore. More legislation that was put forth, co-sponsored by the majority of Democrats on the state Senate and state rep side, on the House side, to put forth legislation to protect our voting rights. Unfortunately, that bill went absolutely nowhere because they want to suppress our votes. They want to make people feel as though it doesn't matter. And so that's what we're up against at this time.
What policies, and this is for both of you, LJ, when you make it to Congress, I'll say it like that. How about that? And what policies would you advocate for to reduce economic inequality?
What policies would I introduce to reduce economic inequality? One of the first things would be the federal minimum wage. We know that the federal minimum wage has not been increased since 1992. I'm going to say that again. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25. Now, Florida did have an amendment on the ballot to increase the minimum wage by $1 up to $12. But the reality is, just to meet basic needs, I said basic needs, that's 2 adults with 2 children, they need to earn over $29 an hour. And look, that's with the state minimum wage of $17.
Mm, that's so
And
sad. And you
so
think of people are allowed
exactly,
to, yeah.
that's one of the first things. And we see it right now. We see, look, communities being built that are rental communities. So it's cyclical, right?
Mhm.
And erroneously, too many times people think that the interest rate is set by the president, but we have a Federal Reserve Board. But look, there are so many things that I want to do that can be implemented, but guess what? We cannot govern if we're not at the table. And we know in Florida, the governor has a super majority. But at the federal level, because federal supersedes state, at the federal level, we currently have a Senate by a very slim majority. That's 1 vote and a vice president to break the tie vote. But the reality is we are 4 seats from flipping the House. Even if Donald Trump were to win and become the president, we can keep him at bay and potentially expand the courts and codify Roe if we have control of the House and the Senate. That's why these seats are so important. Look, we are so close, but yet so far away. It's important to me that people understand the process. Oftentimes, we get on these calls and we have these conversations, but I think what we have to really focus on is voter registration and voter turnout. Of course, we talk about voter education, but the harsh reality is if people understood what was at stake, then of course they would potentially vote. But look, in this country and this state in particular, we are known to kill people for registering people to vote. In this city, we had people like Lloyd Pearson who registered more than 100,000 people. We talk about, Angie alluded to Harriet T. and Harriet V. Moore. They were a couple who were a part of the NAACP who registered countless people, and they were killed in their house for registering people to vote in a coup.
Now, Ms. Nixon, tell me this: how are the Florida state representatives poised to address the potential changes in the voting laws leading up to this election? What are we doing? What are we doing to help ensure that people get their opportunity to vote, irrespective of what the other party is trying to do to take away that opportunity just to vote? I mean, all the things that Florida is doing in terms of trying not to get the people that may vote against their crazy policies, getting those voters out. Is there any plan put forth by the state representative? And I guess I am speaking to Democrats because they're the minority party, and the majority are the ones that are actually going after the voting rights for people here in the state. Is there any plan with our party in terms of how we propose to address that?
Again, I can't speak to the plans of the party just based on my work that I'm doing on the other side of the wall. However, I have seen that they have been out and about, and they've been working to close the voter registration gap and knocking on doors to increase the vote by mail to increase the vote by mail numbers all across the state. So I know that they're out and about right now, and so super excited about that. I know that the current party chair, Nikki Fried, has a Take Back Florida campaign and tour that she's embarking on. And so that is what I know, but I am not, I don't know their day ins and day outs, only what's been made public.
What motivated both of you to run for office, and what keeps you motivated to serve?
So yeah, one of the reasons that I decided to run for office, people may not remember, but I ran almost fresh out of college. I had previously I was interning with City Councilwoman Mia Jones, and she decided to run for office for state rep. She decided to resign and run for state rep. And the candidates that were running for city council, I felt weren't speaking to the younger generation. And so I decided to run. I didn't win, but it opened up a whole bunch of doors. And what keeps me engaged is the fact that I have 5 kids, 2 bios, and I don't want them to continually have to fight the same fights that I'm fighting. And the fact that they've been actively on the front lines with me, like at protests and things like that, is just more motivation for me to stop that from having to happen, so that my grandkids, hopefully, if I get any, won't have to do the same thing as well.
One of the things that I'm concerned about is
Dr. Kane, I want LJ to answer that. What motivates?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. What?
So my path was a little different. As a child, my mother was very active on campaigns, and look, back then we didn't have the technology we have now. So as a matter of fact, in the very building where Angie is, that was the first campaign that I worked on. And at the time, it was a city council campaign, and people would literally go and fold letters and send out letters to introduce candidates. And so as a child, because my mom was very active, I wanted to lick the envelope because it was sweet. So I would lick the envelope because it was sweet. She would say, use the sponge. And I, of course, wanted to lick the envelope. And I just remember going to City Hall and oftentimes, fighting with my mom and seeing things that would occur as a result of their advocacy. And so I always knew the power of our voice. And I don't know if you know, right now it's called the Boobie Clark, the Charles Boobie Clark Center, but in Sherwood, that used to be the voting location. And I remember going to vote, and my mom would pull the curtain back, and the people did not want me to go in with her. And she was like, no, she is going in. And they had the little thing where you had to punch to vote. It was like a punch thing, and you pulled the curtain. Well, I realized the power of our voice at that very young age. And I had political aspirations from a child. But after working on Capitol Hill, after I graduated from law school, I went to Capitol Hill to work for Congresswoman Carrie Meek. And what I saw in the members' dining room, it was disgusting, because you realize that lobbyists run this country. And as Angie alluded to when she said, they said, do you want to bring money back to your district, or do you want to be an advocate? And you quickly learn, in particular, when you are a young freshman member, that if you want to have an impact, you have to decide, what are you going to choose? What side of progress are you going to be on? Are you going to advance the cause of the people, or are you going to bring some crumbs back home and be content with bringing the crumbs? So I became very discouraged by that, and I was disgusted. And what Lorraine Hansberry said is like, what happens to a dream deferred, or does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? So I was done with it, and I decided, you know what, I could just make some money. And I got a political appointment to the Environmental Protection Agency in the Clinton administration, and eventually went on to work for LexisNexis, and was like, I'll make money and make change with money. But God has jokes. I developed a brain tumor and came back to Jacksonville just to recuperate, mind you. And look, God kept speaking. I could not walk, could not get out of the bed, could not talk. And when you're laying there, back then, Facebook wasn't as prominent as it is now. So I couldn't just kill the time recuperating on Facebook. I literally would, pray and talk to God, because I've never been a big TV watcher. I'm a reader. So I couldn't do anything but hear that still small voice. And so when God said it, I never repeated it. I didn't tell anybody. And my mom and I were in Hong Kong, and look, the Holy Spirit kept waking me up, and the rest is history. I have been running now. Me and God got words because look, I've been running, but I haven't been winning. So we got issue. I just want you to know it's out of fear of the Lord that I run, but I also run because I genuinely love this community. I'm a fourth generation Jacksonvillian, and you talk about the laws. My great grandmother, Josephine Kirkland, is one of the founders of the now defunct Ducote Bank because colored teachers could not go to a bank and could not put money in a bank. So she was a founder of that credit union. And so I had lived a life of people telling stories of the rights that people did not have. And so I don't want to see us regress. I want to see us progress. And so that's why I run. I continue to run because the issues that plagued this country when I first ran in 2016 have only gotten worse. And for a person who has worked all of their lives, we talked about Social Security, people who've worked all of their lives, you know, and saved for retirement and use Social Security as a supplement. It is not an entitlement. Look, they paid into it. To see them have to make a decision between a meal or a pill, it's disgusting in a country as rich as ours. It is damn disgusting, if the truth be told. And to see retirees have to go back to work because they can't make ends meet, that can't be. But more importantly, I want to see children who are yet unborn own a home, not have to live in the same home with their mother and their grandmother.
Now, being an old guy with the Social Security, the whole Medicare issue being in the forefront, you know, I still also talk to young folks. I got grandkids and kids that this, you know, I want them to get as old as I am. Okay, I'm 68. I'm proud about it. I made it to 68. But we have a lot of kids that are disillusioned with the way politics are going. You mentioned one of them in terms of being, you know, you went in there and you saw all these damn political hacks. You saw all these lobbyists doing the thing in terms of about running our country because of greed and so on and so on. How do we address the concerns of the young folks? Because they may be the ones that make a difference in this election. If we don't go back, if we don't go and try to address what their concerns are, climate change. Okay, that's a big thing. You know, I tell my kids all the time, if you can't breathe, you can't vote, you can't do a whole lot of things. It makes no difference if you can't breathe. They are concerned about the lack of the current politicians addressing the concerns of these young folks. How do we get them involved? You know, especially in this current political climate. You know, there's a thing going on with Joe Biden and his age, okay? But young folks are trying to say, we have concerns about the directions that the country is headed as it relates to them and the world, not just here at home. They have concerns about Congolese, have concerns about Palestinians. What are we, I mean, they want to hear plans, which I can't give them, but they want to hear from you guys, since you guys are elected official and or want to be elected officials. They want to hear from you guys. What are you guys going to do different?
And so I will speak to that. So as someone who has worked for the Environmental Protection Agency under two different administrations, I will certainly say that, look, climate action is a major part of my campaign. I address it. It's on the cards that I pass out all the time. Look, we know that poor and low income households spend 18 times as much on energy costs. I don't have to tell you about the high incidences of asthma in our community. Look, all that is a result of climate change. I don't have to tell you about, look, the fact that there was an earthquake in New York. Look, that's all climate action. The clean water. Look, we don't have, in Florida, we don't have clean water. It hasn't become to the media in the form that it did in, say, Flint, Michigan. But even when I worked at the Environmental Protection Agency, we knew about the St. John's Water Management District and the poor quality of our drinking water in this state, in particular, this particular county. But we don't hear about that because of, like I said, lobbyists. But what has worked for me, what I've been saying a lot, because the onus is on us. No one's coming to save us. The onus is on each and every one of us to make sure children who are in our sphere of influence are registered. I will say, I talked to them about Amendment 3. Look, they like smoking trees. I speak to them on their language. I say, look, you want to smoke? Vote. Amendment 3 is going to be on the ballot. Marijuana is going to be on the ballot. We have to decriminalize marijuana. Look, if you want to smoke less than 3 ounces and make recreational marijuana legal, look, you got to go to the polls. Amendment 3. Look, and also reproductive rights. That's Amendment 4. I say vote yes on 3 and vote yes on 4. We have to, Angie, am I boring you? Stop yawning. Look, when you talk about Amendment 3 and Amendment 4, I tell them vote yes, because those are issues, and reproductive rights is not just a female issue. Look, you got a side piece, or if you have a future and you're not ready to become a father, look, Amendment 4 affects all of us. I don't know if you all saw the vote that was just taken on the House where, look, they were trying to eliminate contraception. Look, that's your pills, all of the contraception. Look, they want to take contraception off of the shelves. And so you're talking about poverty. Look, if you're not ready to become a parent and you can't afford to survive as a person, how are you going to take care of an unwanted child? So removing, let alone the people who want to plan or who can't give birth to a child with IVF. So all of those issues are on the ballot, and that's what I talk to Gen Z and Gen Alpha about. Angie, of course, is closer in age to them and probably relate better. But I talk about things that are important to them because this is the, Gen Z and G Alpha, they're the I generation. It's all about them. So I talk about issues that matter to them. I tell them about the minimum wage. I talk about affordable housing. I talk about climate action. And I say the things that matter to them. But I swear, the only issue that makes them get excited is when I say, if you want to smoke, vote. They light up, literally. And that's no pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, that may be true, but I do want to make sure that Ms. Nixon, you get a chance to address the questions that I posed, because again, these young folks, I got kids, grandkids, I got great grandkids as well, but kids and grandkids are the ones that are able to vote, and they expressed to me, and this hour is definitely not enough to go over their concerns. And they have a lot of concerns about, do they make a difference? Are we trying to make a difference in their life? Whether or not it's because of income, whether or not it's because of climate change. They are concerned with they're concerned with international issues because they feel what's happening over there can easily happen here, which we all agree, and so on and so on. So give me something to go back to these young folks to get them inspired, other than just social media telling them whatever stuff they want to tell them, and truth, untruth, whatever it may be. Give us something that may give us some hope.
I think LJ just said some things, Dr. Kane.
I understand that. I'm trying to see what Miss Nixon.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Let's give her a chance to chime in.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, for sure. So I think, I think the first thing is to actually go to them, right? We can't continue to have meetings or conversations in our four walls without bringing them in. And so I'm a community organizer, and I put them on my team, right? And you ask them what it is that they want to see addressed, and you listen to them, and you run their ideas, you incorporate and implement their ideas. And in regards to what gives them hope, is just illustrating that they have power, right? One of the reasons that the crisis that's happening over in Gaza and in Palestine is at the forefront is because of Generation Z. They are on social media and they're putting it out there. And so that has caused us to shift our conversations and to push policies, right? And that's because of them. Not only that, but when you look at what happened here in Florida, and I guess all across the country in 2020, who took to the streets after the brutal execution of George Floyd was young people, a lot of young people, and they were able to get policy changes because of that, to the point where we are now seeing like pushback from folks who are pushing things like Project 2025 and all the things. And so we have to just really point to that and let them know that they have helped so at times right the wrong ships, and that they do have power, but they have to be consistent and continually do it.
I can't let this slide without asking this. Ms. Nixon, you talking with young folks, you're getting now, both of you guys, talking with young folks. I think we need a community forum where we have a generational discussion. Okay, old folks like myself discussing our ideas with young folks, trying to get them to appreciate our view as well as them trying to get us to appreciate their view. And I don't have that level of the communication with young folks that it appears that you do, Ms. Nixon, and you as well, Ms. Holloway, when you're talking to those individuals. I would like if either one of you guys or both of you guys would kind of help orchestrate a forum by which we can have generational discussion. The difference between me and my children and grandchildren, and how they think and what they're thinking of and wanting us to address their needs. It would be great if we can have that kind of discussion. And I definitely would, obviously, I'm pushing to have it on our show, but I don't care where it's at. It just needs to be done. If either one of you guys are looking forward or have or want to have that kind of conversation.
No, for sure. I'd definitely be open to something like that. I know I've opened up the space, and the Dream Defenders, which is a younger movement-led organization, they meet in my space once a month. And so I think that's something that they would possibly be down to help co-lead and co-facilitate.
I would love to come in and hear what they have to say and participate. Not saying my view is going to be the right view. I just want to hear what they got to say, because at the end of the day, we all got to come together to make this work and to keep Project 2025 out of the White House.
So we're at the end of the podcast. Great discussion. One thing that LJ mentioned that I think is important, Dr. Kane, for us to talk about in the future, not to put these ladies on the spot, but to definitely have someone come and talk about when we go to the polls and those amendments are on there. We're like, oh, shoot, I didn't think about that. All I thought about is coming to vote for the person that I came to vote for. However, the amendments that oftentimes show up on ballots that has far too many words to understand, for some of us, even me as a college graduate, I think we need to have someone on here to talk about and help explain. I know in the past, I've seen the little leaflets that the League of Women Voters would put out to give their position on it, but really have someone come on in the future and talk about what amendments as Floridians, for example, that we are going to have to vote on. As we near the end of the show, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
I was going to say, I can offer up someone from my staff to do that. We're actually creating one-pagers in regards to them. I actually got an email in regards to it. We just have to run it through legal. So we can definitely have someone come on your show to explain what happens if you vote yes and what happens if you vote no. That
would be awesome. Definitely something to consider.
And I've done it in the past and plan to do it this cycle, because in addition to the 6 amendments, there will also be judges. And so I've done it in the past and plan to do it again.
Very important.
For a venue big enough to host it. We had it at St. Paul AME in the past. And so I'm looking to do it again and bring in several subject matter experts to discuss each of the amendments to help people to make the best decision for them. However, as a candidate, I would say that I am strictly saying vote yes on 1, 3, and 4.
Thank you. Well, as we near the end of the podcast, we always like to give our guests an opportunity to share their final thoughts. And I want you to share your final thoughts, if you will, on two things, and you can add 3, 4, and 5 if you'd like. But in particular, two. Number one, you both are candidates for political office. Please make sure you share with our audience how people can contribute to your campaigns. Representative Nixon, are you running? Are you currently up for re-election or no?
I am definitely running again. I'm up for re-election. I do have a primary opponent, and so my race, we'll decide who goes to the race in November on August 20th. And so,
Yeah, so
yes,
we'll
folks
give you
can
a
reach out
chance.
to me.
Yeah, hold on a second.
AngieNixon.com.
Hold that thought. I want you to answer that, and I also want you to say, for people who may not have known either of you before this podcast, give your elevator spiel on why they need to support your candidacy, either by financially supporting it, and or if they are in the area in which you serve or want to serve, why they should vote for you. If you would say that, and anything else, your final thoughts on Project 2025, voting, the whole notion that the next president of this United States will probably choose several Supreme Court justices, and why that is very important for you all to do that. Representative Nixon, I'll give you the floor to start.
Yeah, for sure. So I am Angie Nixon, born and raised in Northwest Jacksonville, a product of Duval County Public Schools. And I am asking folks to continually support me and to vote me back in office, as well as donate to AngieNixon.com. I am a community organizer. I am not a career politician. I just care about people, all people, and I believe that no matter who we love, no matter what religion we practice, what color we are, how our hair grows out of our head, that we all deserve the opportunity to live healthy, prosperous, and safe. And I'm going to continually fight for that. And my track record speaks for itself. I do not just go out in the community when it's an election time. I'm doing this stuff year round, day in and day out. And so in regards to Project 2025, look, everything we do is determined by who's in office. And in Florida, as LJ Holloway stated earlier, we are currently living in Project 2025. The Heritage Foundation has pushed some really detrimental bills over the past few years, particularly in the South, because the South is a testing ground. And they test here because we are, new Jim Crow type era. And so in order for us to push back against that, to push back against folks who are frankly afraid that they're losing power and control, and they're fearful that there's a new majority that is rising up of Black and brown people, and they're fearful that they're going to do to them what they've been doing to us for hundreds of years. We have to push back against that. But when we do come in power, we don't do that. We don't lead how they've led. We lead with dignity and love and humanity. And I think it's really important to let everyone know that when we come together, we no longer have to just survive and thrive. We can actually survive. We can actually thrive, and we can actually flourish. And I want to push that as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And again, it is Cafe Resistance Bookstore and Coffee
Yes.
Shop on Sutel Drive. Look her up there. And AngieNixon.com. LJ, LaShonda Holloway for Congress. How can people, how about you answering those questions that I asked?
Sure. My name is LaShonda L.J. Holloway, and of course, I am a candidate to represent the people of the 4th Congressional District. The 4th Congressional District is 3 counties and 10 cities. It's all of Clay County, all of Nassau County, and parts of Duval County. And I run for the reason that, look, we teach our children to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And in the last sentence, we say, with liberty and justice for all. And so we know that it's not liberty and justice for all. And so I run because I want America to shape to her purpose. We teach our children the preamble to the Constitution, and we say we the people. And so I, you, and the listeners of Pause for the Truth are a part of the we. We are not a perfect union, but we are seeking to establish a more perfect union. And in order to establish a more perfect union, look, we need people to represent the people. That is why I run. I always say that, look, united we win, and that I am for the people. You can go back to my childhood, and people who know me will tell you I have always fought for the people or for the underdog, and that's who I am. It's a part of my DNA. It's not just who I am, but you can go, children live what they learn, and you can go back to my great-grandparents. It's a part of my DNA. And I want people to vote LJ Holloway for a better day. This is Jim Crow 2.0. We cannot go back. I believe that, look, we who believe in freedom cannot rest, but more important, look, we have to progress and not regress. So again, I would ask your voters to go to hollowayforcongress.com to make a contribution. I do need commercials. My district was heavily gerrymandered by the governor. It was an overreach. It is unconstitutional. But because we have a state Supreme Court that is stacked with conservatives and a U.S. Supreme Court that is stacked with conservatives, I do believe it is what it is. We can win this seat. 75,000 18 to 30-year-olds did not vote in 2022. And I need, look, for parents, grandparents, cousins, aunts, nieces to make sure that the people in your family are registered and that they go to the polls so that we can have a voice in Washington. And I want to be your voice. Again, I say, for a better day, vote LJ Holloway. You can visit us at hollowayforcongress.com. And I have what's called Give Me 5 Fridays, and I say Give Me 5 on Fridays.
All right, now, I like that. Thank you. Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts regarding tonight's discussion? You had a lot on your mind. This is right up your alley. And as Dr. Kane always says, LJ and Representative Nixon, 1 hour is never enough. We need more time. Go ahead, Dr. Kane. What are your final thoughts?
1 hour is not enough, but what I do want to make sure that we all leave here is trying to appreciate, whether you agree or disagree, the young people's view. And what we need to do is to get out and show them that we understand where they may be coming from, whether we agree or disagree with them in terms of their assessment. We need to hear from them more because, as Ms. Holloway stated, they are a large part of the voting bloc that we will need to right this ship that's headed in the wrong direction as far as it relates to our Republican advocates. And I hate to qualify it as Republican, Democrat, but it is what it is. We need, I agree with her in terms of voting those decisions, 1, 3, and 4. We also, what we have to call it is what it is, the fear of dissolution of white privilege. That's what we're looking at in this country when it comes down to the number, the people advocating going back to a Confederate state, and maybe not as quite as Confederate as it was with Abraham Lincoln, before Abraham Lincoln, but definitely as it was when they said take our country back to before 1960, which is what again, that's what we're looking at. And the final thing I want to say is that it is supercharged of Jim Crow 3.0. 2.0 we've been dealing with for a while. 3.0 is where we're at right now. And if we don't come together, both old and young, or whatever the generations are, we don't come together, we will fail this very detrimental journey together. Okay, we have got to do better as far as young folks, young black folks, young old black folks, and whatever ages, the different generations. We need to get together and start discussing how do we to meet somewhere in the middle. We got to do it.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. And our behind the scenes guy popped in, so he obviously has something to say. He's been sitting back. I know he's, has his own thoughts about tonight. Tyrone, did you have any final thoughts regarding tonight's discussion?
No, not really. I wanted to thank our guests for coming on. It's always a wonder to have them on and to be able to engage in this kind of conversation with them. I think Dr. Kane did an awesome job of saying just what I said. For whatever reason, we're missing the boat on connecting with the youth. And it is our responsibility to figure out how to connect those dots. So once again, thanks for coming on, and we look forward to furthering this conversation at a later time.
Thank you. And as Dr. Kane and Tyrone said, thank you to LaShonda LJ Holloway for Congress, and State Representative Angie Nixon. My final thoughts regarding tonight's topic is that one thing that both the ladies said is they were engaged in politics at a young age. In my opinion, the way you get youth engaged in politics is to start them at a young age when you're going to vote. Know that it's not too young. You explain it to them at the level where they are. And that is regarding everything. You teach them not to touch a hot stove because of the implications of it. You have to put it to them in a manner that they can understand it when they're young. LJ said her grandmother or mother took her to the poll, and she remembered the curtain and going behind the curtain, and she insisted that she allowed her LJ to come in with her. That's what we have to do when we go to vote. We have to take our little ones with us and get them, put it in. How will they know about the process if they were never exposed to it? Thank you as always for tuning in to Pause for the Truth. Stay tuned next week as we present another topic. And as always, if you have a particular topic that you'd like for us to consider, please email us at info@pauseforthetruth.com. Thank you again to our guests, and have a good evening.
And there we have it, another episode of the Pause for the Truth podcast in the proverbial books. Our heartfelt thanks go out to every one of you who took the time to tune in. Mark your calendars. We're here every Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to join our community on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But the golden ticket? Subscribing to our YouTube channel. That's your passport to all our latest episodes and exclusive content. A special mention to the wizard behind the curtain, Tyrone Jackson from Call Tyrone IT Services. His technical prowess and unwavering dedication are the backbone of this podcast. Next week, we'll be back with more. Until then, tell your friends, tell your family about our show.